Greetings, my name is JC,
And I'm Ian.
and this is the Gamer's Gaiden. In this episode, what we're going to be doing is doing a retrospective and review of the video game Afterparty.
Yeah, we thought this would kind of be important because one of the very first reviews that we did collectively was Oxenfree,
Yeah.
which was their first game.
Mm-hmm.
And they have done something else in between.
Yeah, it's like a cell phone game. I don't really know too much about it. There's not too much information about it, but it seemed to be like a side project that they did with Telltale.
Yeah,
And they did a project for the cell phones. It was on iOS and Android. Then they started working with them. Before we get too deep into it, the studio that made this game is Night School Studio, and yeah, like you said, they made Oxenfree, and then the cell phone game. And then they were going to be working on Stranger Things.
that's right, because there
With
was going to be a Telltale series for Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Because there needed to be a Telltale series for everything.
Yeah. Oh, I think that game would have been really great.
It would have been really cool.
And unfortunately, the company had some financial troubles, but they're kind of coming back from the ashes a little bit.
Sort of, yeah.
But yeah, Night School Studios' second main game, so to speak, their third
Yeah.
game, but it's the second one that was on like multiple consoles and stuff. Afterparty just came out on October 31st of this year, so a few
Yeah.
weeks ago. But we played it over the last week, and this is a review and retrospective about it. So, first, let's go over what the game is about. And it's essentially a graphical adventure style game where you move around a lot and interact with different people in hell, basically. And you play as both Milo and Lola. The
Who are
game.
recently deceased.
Yeah, and the game actually switches back and forth depending on what's going on and what part you are in the game between the two of them. So whenever you're walking around, you might be like controlling Milo, and then something will happen and dialogue will pass, and then all of a sudden you'll be controlling Lola, for example. And there's different sectors of hell that you can go to, and each one kind of has. There's an overall theme of the game. Obviously, it's they kind of have a very own characteristic style of what kind of hell looks like. It's sort of just like a rundown city.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's 5 different sections of it that sort of feel like different, maybe blocks or like suburbs of hell itself. But yeah, so the two characters, Milo and Lola, don't actually know why they died, and at the beginning of the game, they're essentially told to get in line to be processed, and they're kind of wondering what's going on, and then the clock hits 5 o'clock, and the demons basically end their work day, and they tell them to come back again tomorrow for processing.
Yeah, that was probably one of my favorite lines of dialogue in the entire game is hearing a demon say, "You think it's hard being tortured for 8 hours straight? Try being the guy doing the whipping for 8 hours straight."
Yeah,
I was like, that's a pretty good point. Like,
Yeah.
that's
It's certainly a very good way to set the mood of like the kind of dark comedy that this game is going to portray throughout the game, which is pretty similar throughout the game. But yeah, so after you fail to get processed and you got to come back tomorrow morning, this one character, Sam, who's kind of like this person who's sort of like the person who ferries people back and forth on the river Styx to the different areas, and
but kind of has like like a friendly cab driver feel.
yeah, which is really awkward, especially for a character in hell. They seem very like neutral. It's like, why are you down here? But they must have done something.
I mean, it was after 5 o'clock. They were
Yeah, and so she basically tells you her name is Sam, and she basically tells you that the Satan will actually let you go if you beat him in a drinking contest, and then you'll be free to head back to Earth if they actually do feel that they deserve to go back, because their characters actually don't know why they died or how they died or why they're in hell. and that's kind of like the overarching beginning of the game, which is kind of a cool introduction chapter, so to speak, of like sort of what's going on. It sets the tone of how Milo and Lola actually like act against each other, because you can certainly tell that they're really good friends, but they kind of grow tired of each other a little bit.
Yeah.
And despite that, since they've been friends for so long, they kind of like they just work well off of each other in many respects of their lives, it seems. Yeah, and then from that point on, you basically get different quests, and you go through doing them because the devil tells you you need to get 2 seals basically of approval in order to be able to um, uh, get accepted for the challenge of the drink off against him.
Yeah, you need to get these seals from uh
The
the
monarchs.
monarchs of hell,
Yeah.
which is kind of neat. Like as someone who has played a whole lot of Diablo,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean I'm playing more of Diablo again right now,
Cool.
to actually hear like they are talking about the
Apollyon
lords of hell
and
and
Asmodeus.
Asmodeus, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Even
it's
Cerberus is in there as like a pet dog, and it's just like he's like on the side, just like
yeah, he just hangs
sleeping.
out.
Yeah.
You can pet him,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he's just like, hmm. He looks like a big like Great Dane
Yeah. That's
with like
basically.
horns.
Mm-hmm. And a
But
spike
like,
collar.
yeah, well, of course, the spike collar. But Beelzebub is there.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of the, I guess, characters that you would expect to run into in hell.
Yeah, a lot of the different I guess biblical
Yeah,
characters are in there, and yeah, so you're basically going around trying to get these seals in order to um uh, challenge Satan to a drinking contest. And that's sort of like the main aspects of the game without getting into too much detail of it yet. There'll be a spoiler section later, but we'll warn you. But let's go over what we liked and didn't like about the game while we were playing it. And we're going to start off with the good. And I guess first off, I'd say I probably liked more about this game than I didn't.
yeah,
But there were some aspects of the game that I kind of felt discerning and a little disheartening, because some of the issues that we have are kind of things that can be fixed, which I guess are good, but like why weren't they fixed to begin with?
yeah. I mean, I
It
think.
is a very small company, and like I respect that, and
Well, I think they're on under a huge time crunch to get this out because, like, thematically, they wanted to release it around Halloween.
yeah, which is the right time to release it. If they had
Exactly.
waited another year, like who knows what would have happened, right?
But even still, it didn't. Nothing about this said Halloween to me. So I mean, I feel like this
Yeah.
could have been released at any point. But I mean,
Honestly, I think to most people, the for lack of a better word, they kind of lump all this stuff up with like horror,
yeah,
and that's kind of like because so many like people out there have that kind of stigmatism of like this type of theme. That's probably why they wanted to at least release it around like the witching time of year, so to speak.
true.
But anyway, let's go into what we liked about the game.
Well, I know
Ian?
what grabbed me first was the art style.
Yeah, it was definitely a huge improvement in art from Oxenfree
Yeah.
graphically, although the Oxenfree graphics have a very different aesthetic to it, which I
Yes.
like in a different way.
Yeah, it
But
still had a great charm to it.
yeah,
But this, it was a lot more vibrant.
hmm which is
Even
weird because it was in hell too. I thought honestly that they would go for darker tones, but whenever I saw the trailer for this game, like you knew what the game was gonna look like, and I liked it. It was really cool.
yeah, like visually, it really grabbed me.
Hmm
You drinking is a main element of this, so you spend a lot of
Yeah.
time in various
Because
bars.
there's like around 20 drinks that you can try, and like each place has an option of 4 different drinks, and you can go through each of them. You actually get an achievement for trying and drinking them all, which is kind of neat. and they
But
have
like
really funny gimmicks to them
I
too.
really enjoyed how each of the different bars
Yeah.
had very different aesthetics to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like they looked aesthetically different. Like
Yeah,
they
like
were
one was more like of like a beatnik place, and like another one was just like a dive bar,
yeah,
and
and
there's a
like
sports
I like that
bar.
there was one of the first ones you go into is like a sports bar,
Yeah.
but it's like a chain.
Mm-hmm.
And demons keep making fun of the fact that it's like a chain sports bar. They're like, "Oh, this
Yeah.
place isn't that good. I mean, it's just a chain bar."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they even comments like, "Oh, we have places like this up on Earth." Like it's pretty clever with its dialogue, which is another aspect of the game that we really liked as well, which is its dialogue because it was really clever. It came to like I really appreciated the humor. I didn't find it laugh out loud funny in most of its
It
dialogue.
got me a couple of
There was a couple
times.
times where it was definitely really funny, but I think most of its jokes were more clever than anything else, and I like that type of humor.
Yeah.
So I felt it sort of suited the game because it, not that it's like a super intellectual comedy, but like it is in hell, and like just having an understanding of like, you might think that you're actually doing like the best in life and stuff like that within between good and evil and stuff like that. And there's a lot of gray, and in this world, if you don't 100% do good, I guess, and you're
Yeah.
more on the gray like and dark area, you'll get tossed into hell. And it's just like cuz a lot of the dialogue was centered around like Lola and her community service and different things that she did in order to like activism and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, you did all that, which is great, awesome. You get a gold star, but you're a really selfish person, and you don't you don't help others that individuals and stuff like that that are around you and things like that, and you'll throw them under the bus like if it'll be underneath your gain and type of attitude and stuff like that, which like might be why you're here, right? Like
Yeah.
even though you did all these great things and stuff like that, which was kind of interesting because it's like maybe that would throw you in hell. Who knows if it is a real thing? Like you know what I mean? Like
Well, I mean, plus they get into some of the background of like hell and the
hmm
creation of it and the the war between Lucifer
and
and
God.
God. But like none of it was super heavy.
Yeah, it kind of just like brushed over the surface of that lore basically, and that's
Yeah.
another aspect that I
Like
really liked to the game
they
because
get into it and
yeah.
you get a lot of information,
hmm
but at no point did I feel like, oh, this is just like really dry,
Yeah, because
you
like
know?
as much as I like a story like Legacy of Kain, which has a lot of parallels between like Gabriel and the angels and stuff like that, and Lucifer and the fallen angels, but like there's so much of it that like it can get sort of like daunting. It's like why is this going on and on?
That's
It's
true.
like
And some of the dialogue in Legacy of Kain is super dry, and
yeah,
the voice acting is very 90s.
yes,
Whereas this is at least like this is
hmm
very recent. I mean the the dude that did Lucifer
hmm
was fantastic.
yeah, yeah,
Like, I mean, all of the dialogue was great, and I was a big fan of all of the voice actors. But hearing so many different versions of the devil,
yeah.
this is probably one of my favorite versions of the devil.
Yeah,
Like, it was really well done.
the voice actors were definitely well placed, and a lot of them they either worked in Telltale games or in Oxenfree, and then some other similar type of games. So you kind of like know what to expect with the quality of the voice acting, which is another really great aspect. But let's talk about the music because Scientific made the soundtrack for this game, and
Yeah.
they also made the soundtrack of Oxenfree, as well as some other games. But like with this company, they've like worked with both of their like major projects. It was pretty good. There was different styles of music, and some of it was ambient, much like in Oxenfree, where it's just like background music. And it suited the different styles of bars that were at the different locations,
Yeah.
and like the just general background overland map, just walking like in the street and stuff like
I
that was
loved the street music.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that.
Yeah.
It was so like perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't like take over,
Yeah.
but at the same time it was fun to hear it in the background.
Yeah.
Like it had a really good beat to it.
I think one of my favorite like beats to the game that was like really catchy too was whenever you hit we played it on the PlayStation 4. And if whenever you pause the game to go to the menu where the map is and the social media aspect of the game, there was like this beat that played whenever you basically paused it, and like that was kind of like it was nice and mellow and like had a nice low like beat to it, stuff like that. I think that's probably like one of my favorite uh, tracks for the game as well, which was pretty cool. Yeah.
Now we kind of brushed over it a little bit earlier, and I went back into the art style, but the drinking.
Mm-hmm.
The drinking was I thought it was like well executed for one.
It took me a little bit of time to actually realize what it was doing too, but continue.
Like you said, each bar has like 4 or 5 different options for which you can get.
Yeah.
All of which were hilariously named.
Mm-hmm.
Gave you an ingredient list, which was all deadly.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorites was the literal acid.
You were drinking acid.
Yeah, it was just acid.
Yeah. And they had like pretty clever names and things like that too, and there was a lot of them, and like each, like I said, bar earlier has like generally each vendor had like 4 different drinks basically.
Yeah.
And they would change your dialogue, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, I didn't actually notice this right away until I drank the pirate drink.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh no, that's blatantly obvious. Like,
Yeah, because you talk like a pirate.
yeah, because basically you had, much like Oxenfree, there's 3 dialogue choices, but instead of allowing you to choose 3 of them, you always had the option of basically A or B. And then if you hit the drink button, then you would get a third option, and then that would be based off of the drink that you have just drank. And sometimes you have to like take a couple of sips of your drink to actually get the dialogue to come up, but it would always show you like there might be something, you should probably drink something.
Yeah, you would see the little like third option over top.
Yeah.
And it would have the right trigger instead of like a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was you'd pull the right trigger to drink.
To drink, yeah.
So you'd have a little bit of a drink. The screen gets a little bit fuzzy and kind of wobbly.
Yeah, which is kind of cool. And if you drink way too fast, then the screen basically like you can't really see what's going on, which is really funny. It was a good way to basically emulate the characters being drunk. But
Yeah, and I found it was never not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Never not worth it. It was always worth it to drink.
Yeah.
Because the dialogue options were hilarious. Like you
Yeah.
said, there was the pirate. I had one that was like a vaudevillian, and you just kept making these like weird, like 1920s jokes.
Yeah.
Oh, and there was the sports one, where you would just yell random sports things
Yeah.
that had nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, I remember that, and I think that was one of the aspects where I actually didn't select many of them because I was like, why is this a thing? But that's kind of funny.
I selected every one of
Yeah.
them. I had it in hand while playing beer pong at one point,
Mm-hmm.
and I had lost, and it like the other character said something, and I had like a few like the 2 options,
Right.
and then one was just like touchdown, and I'm like, yep,
Yeah.
that's exactly the option.
Yeah. There was really only one part of the game where Lola was kind of trying to act serious that I didn't actually select the options that were given to me from the alcohol, just because I felt that the character probably would want to actually like get their point across instead of just yelling random things out, because I thought it might affect the outcome of the game, because there is more than one ending of the game. So that was really the only aspect that I just was like, oh, I'm gonna kind of ignore this extra feature. But yeah, so those are some of the things that we really enjoyed about the game. Let's go into some of the things that we kind of really didn't enjoy so much. I think the biggest thing about this game that really kind of hindered the experience was how the game slowed down and stuttered a lot. And
Yeah.
it was really awkward because sometimes it would affect the dialogue where it would take a little while to actually load the next line, or you were traveling in between different sections. Like I think there was one part in my playthrough where you were on the taxi talking with Sam, and then the dialogue ended, and then it literally waited for 2 minutes to continue like
Yeah.
talking in the conversation.
I think almost every time I was on the ferry,
Mm-hmm.
I had to slow down.
Yeah.
It would like chop.
And then every now and then, walking around, the game would like stutter where it just wouldn't move anymore, but you would still hear the music fine. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden the game would sort of like judder and catch up, and then you'd be okay to continue playing the game, which was just kind of broke the mood a little bit.
Well, yeah, it's a really weird performance issue. Like
Yeah,
I
and
I was
we
playing it on a PS4 Pro,
yeah, same with me, and
which
they're fairly good consoles, and like for what the game is, I'm sure there's a lot of like game engine running in the background with like its options, and like it had a lot of like particle effects going off and stuff like that. But like, so we didn't play on the PC, so we don't know if it's an exclusive console issue
that's
because we
true.
didn't play it on the Xbox or the PC. But yeah, so it was just, yeah, kind of disheartening because like I'm sure that they'll probably get that fixed, but just playing it through for the first time, it just kind of broke the immersion. And I think one of the biggest things about this game is the immersion. And along the lines of the immersion, I had this issue, but it doesn't sound like you did, or maybe you just didn't notice it from whenever we were talking about this before the episode. But there was sometimes whenever they were talking, and basically they wouldn't say the full word of in the middle of a sentence if there was like a comma, and then it would like load in the next like thing that they're saying, and it would just like abruptly stop them saying a sentence. And I don't. Uh, I thought maybe I was accidentally like pressing a button or something like that. So like anytime I heard dialogue, I basically just got into the habit of just standing there and then listening to the dialogue, because I noticed sometimes it would just skip past it. Where like they would be saying, like I said, a word, or like the end of the sentence would be cut off or something like that. And it just kind of, I figured it might have been because of the game was juddering or something like that. I'm just not entirely certain, but I had the subtitles turned on. Like I usually prefer subtitles in games.
Yeah, me too.
And that's how I actually noticed it, because there was one like part where I forget who it was, but like one of the main characters was talking, and then all of a sudden like two of the words were cut off, and I'm just like, what? And they moved into the next sentence, and literally I was only walking. I didn't press any buttons to interrupt it. So
Oh.
I thought like that kind of like broke the whole appeal of the dialogue to me, because the game is very dialogue based. Because it's not an action oriented game. You're not going around doing a ton of things. You're just going around talking to people, really. So
Yeah, there's a couple mini games,
yeah,
but for the most part, yeah, it is all dialogue.
yeah. And then you actually got a different
Yeah,
one that I
I had
didn't
a different
get.
because I didn't have that issue,
Mm-hmm.
but near the end of the game, I'd say probably for the last like quarter,
Right.
because it was a surprising amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Sam, who we mentioned earlier, the ferry driver,
Mm-hmm.
ferryman. Anyways, Sam, um, her arm was stuck like this,
Yeah.
and like
That's so
the
weird.
the rest of her would still move and animate, like she would still gesture with her other hand, but this hand was just stuck here,
Right.
and like there there's a whole section, I guess, yeah, like the last quarter, where you could be around Sam quite a bit,
Yeah.
and yeah, she was stuck hand up, and like we walked down together to the ferry. The lead character would get in at the same time as Sam, and then as the second character would slide in, Sam would slide out
Right.
and stand up,
Mm-hmm.
and then it would like the boat would pull away,
Okay.
and Sam would be like standing on the outside of the cab with her like back facing. It was super weird, and then it would cut to the ferrying section, where usually there's dialogue and stuff, and Sam would be standing in the front seat,
Yeah.
still hand up.
I think the only
It
visual.
was so weird. Like it. I thought it would maybe correct eventually,
Mm-hmm.
but it never did. She was like frozen like that.
Mm. I think the only visual glitch I had was whenever you took a ferry with Sam from one of the locations to the other. I forget exactly where it was, but the characters didn't actually load into the cab.
Oh,
But it was literally only for like maybe 5 seconds, and I tested it to like the other issues that we're having with like the loading issues. But yeah, so as you can tell with the stuff that we didn't like, they're semi trivial in the respects that this can be fixed, which is good.
yeah,
And
they can
they're
easily
not
patch
knocks
it.
against the actual like game content itself. Just some hiccups which are sort of annoying, and like I will admit it sort of breaks the immersion. So I do hope it's patched like fairly soon.
Yeah.
Um, it's like we didn't play it the week it came out because we waited to play this so that we could play it in the same week and then have like fresh um thoughts about the game because we literally just we beat it over the couple days
Yeah,
basically.
I finished it last night.
Yeah, and so it's been like 2 weeks now and these still haven't been fixed, but you got to give them time. So but I'm sure they'll get to it if they're aware of it. So
Oh yeah, and
yeah.
I'm sure. I mean, because it sounds like we had similar issues,
Mhm.
so I'm sure that they will know
Mhm.
and get into those. But
Yeah, so like we were saying, it mainly overall, pretty good experience. But we're gonna continue going on into our thoughts about more specifics of the game. With that, if you don't want the game spoiled for you and what happens, probably pause the video and then come back after you beat it. Or if you don't care, then you're
stay with
welcome to
us.
stay with us. Yeah, we do have a final thoughts section at the very end, which may not have any spoilers, as many of them anyway. So you can check the notes in the description to skip to that if you want to hear our final thoughts on it. Either way, let's continue on some of our uh, more thorough thoughts on things that kind of happened in the game and stuff like that. So spoiler zone, and yeah, let's just get into it. So we kind of alluded to this, but I think sort of my favorite part of the whole entire game was a little bit of its lore. And the thing is, like, its idea of heaven and hell were very similar to like the generic like Christian mythology,
Yeah.
where it was kind of like there's this war, and then Lucifer was the fallen angel, and then he sort of set up uh, like hell, and then people would either get sent to heaven or hell, but a lot more people are getting to hell. But they added in things like, well, at one point in history, hell got overpopulated, so they literally purged half the population and stuff like that because they're
Yeah.
just like, whatever, we don't really care. Like, they're all bad anyway, so let's just kill them, make it easier on ourselves. So it was kind of neat how they added in like little aspects like that, like uh
Well, things like talking about the relationship between uh, Lucifer and God,
mhm,
and like there basically becomes a point in the game where they stop referring to him as Lucifer, and pretty
yeah,
much everyone calls him Morningstar
yeah,
because he was the
the
Morning
Morning
Star.
Star.
Um,
And it's
and
kind
like,
of interesting because like eventually you find out that like he's actually Satan is actually depressed basically,
yeah,
and that's why there's all this drinking and stuff like that in hell, and why he has this drinking contest essentially is because
well,
he's basically ignoring his problems
yeah,
because of his
he's
falling out with
he's
God.
an alcoholic because of the depression
Yeah,
from his breakup with God.
yeah.
Like it is,
And it's not even like it's been happening for like thousands of years, and is like, come on, get over it, right? Like his brothers and sisters who are the monarchs are just like, this was like thousands of years ago, get over it, like this is where we are.
yeah, and it's neat. Like I was really impressed with how they handled that. Like
Hmm.
you get a brush of it early on. Like at first, your first meeting with Lucifer or Luke,
Yeah,
as they're calling him at the beginning.
that's one of the great things about this game is that everybody kind of has their own little abbreviated nickname or something like that,
Yeah,
and
that
they
was
call
great.
them different things. It depends on like which person is talking to the different like monarchs and stuff like that as to what they refer to them as. So
But you go, you meet Lucifer, and he's like, yeah, go get the seals from the monarchs. And the first one I went to was Asmodeus, who everyone calls Al, which
mhm.
is hilarious. But um, you know, at first, so you first meet Lucifer, and you're just like, oh, okay, well, he just likes to party.
Yeah.
He's just a badass. And then you go and meet Al, who has been like partying nonstop
Yeah.
because of a breakup. Like he broke up from his wife, so he's just been like headfirst into like booze, and like anybody that you talk to is like, don't try to like harsh his vibe.
Yeah.
Like he just wants to be having a good time all the time.
Yeah, and I did that later in the game. I did it in a different order. It sounds like, and it's really funny because like he's even doing things because of the breakup that like dancing is a big thing of his, and his ex is like, "What? Like I always asked you if you wanted to dance," and he's like, "Yeah, I didn't know that I liked it. Now I realize that I love it." Like, it was pretty cool.
But it was really neat, just like how deep it got, and
Hmm.
like how dark you can end up
Yeah.
when you're in a situation like that.
Yeah, because like each of the monarchs basically have their own like human problem, which was kind of neat that they actually gave these like dark entities sort of more relatable attributes.
Yeah.
Because like you have the seven sins and there wasn't seven monarchs, but like those were kind of like layered on top of the different monarchs that you meet in the game. Regardless of like who it is, some of them like overlap on to different characters and stuff like that, and it kind of gave them more of a relatable element so that you can kind of be like, it's kind of like sort of it gave me a vibe of something one of my grandmother's uh like I forget who exactly it was, but it was either her sister or something like that said once whenever I was really young, and it has always stuck with me. She believed that like this was hell, and then like, or if it wasn't, then it would be very similar. And it kind of like gave me a vibe of like the hell in this game was very similar to like a lot of aspects of like Earth and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it just kind of reminded me of that because it's like, a lot of these people, even the demons or the humans down there, are just like, they have their problems and they've done their things, and they're just kind of like doing their 9 to 5 and then doing whatever they want to do to live with their lives after hours and stuff like that, which is kind of interesting.
Pretty much. And I mean, like, when you meet Apollyon,
Hmm.
uh she she has this like totally different view on what hell should be.
Yeah, there's a huge juxtaposed thing of she thinks it sort of be almost a little bit more orderly, and
Yeah, like she thinks
Satan's more
it
chaotic.
could be better used as like reflection and rehabilitation,
Hmm.
instead of just like constant torture and partying and
Which is a little weird because like other than the one like lore aspect of like Satan can send you back to Earth if he wants to, like there's no indication that there's like a redemption or something like that that you could potentially like be redeemed and go back to hell. Because like even at the end of the game, like with one of the endings, which we'll get into later, there is a success or a failure on whether you get out. And if you succeed, there's a question like, do you think we'll go back to heaven, or like, do you think we still have a chance? And then they have a conversation about that, and yeah, so like other than that dialogue at the very end, there's really no indicator of like whether there is a redemption or not, because they never really answer that. But yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I was really impressed with the way they handled things though. And
Hmm.
they did talk about some very human problems to these very non-human entities,
Yeah.
and essentially having an intervention
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, because that's
with Lucifer.
basically the second, like, there's Milo and Lola's story going on, and they want to try and like win this drinking contest because they didn't deserve to die. They didn't even deserve to get into hell, in their opinion, because
Yeah.
they don't have all their memories. Is kind of what's explained to you. And they're just like, if we win this, we can go back, and then we'll be fine. And there's a side story going on, and basically, Apollyon is trying to coordinate this. It's not really a coup, but it kind of is at the same time, where she wants to have an intervention
Yeah.
with Satan.
And get him to stop drinking.
Yeah, because like at the end of the game, like he is so drunk that he's literally falling face first on the floor, and she's just like, see, like, you're embarrassing yourself in front of everybody. And he's like, no, I'm not. Like, I got my friends, and even his friends are like, yeah, we're with you, buddy.
Chernabog.
Yeah.
But then on top of all of that too, you have your own personal demon
Mm-hmm.
who you're assigned right at the beginning, and she kind of spends the game tormenting you.
Yeah.
And like, I was so sick of her, Wormhorn.
I thought she was really funny.
I mean,
She's like one of my favorite characters.
she was funny, but like, she keeps picking at you guys, and like really trying to hurt your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And then she has this big like glorious moment later on, right in front of Lucifer.
Yeah.
And he's just like, whatever. Like, personal demons are like garbage, so you're just gonna die when the sun comes up.
Yeah, because he explains there's real demons and then partial demons, and personal demons are the other category of demon. And as Ian just mentioned, that once the sun goes up, then
Yeah, they like reset every day.
yeah. So you basically die every 24 hours. So he doesn't really care if the personal demon succeeded or not.
Yeah, and like it's just this like, you can see this like look of triumph on her face, and she's just
Immediately,
yeah,
boom.
just like, ugh, I'm garbage. And like,
And you even find her in a bar, like wallowing in her like sorrow later.
it was, it's funny because she went from somebody who I was just like, just go away, like I don't want to deal with you, to like, oh man, like I feel so bad. Like, let's be friends. Like, I'm sorry, I was rude. Can we be friends?
Yeah, I kind of was just passive aggressive towards her, and I found it an interesting character because I feel like in the context of like, if that's real, that might be something that actually happens. So
Yeah.
I thought it was very clever and well done through the character of like just taking, and like you learn a lot about this character, a little bit more than some of the others too, where it's basically through her, it's the only real way that you learn any of Milo and Lola's past. And I think that's why I enjoyed this character so much, because it's brought up that like Milo had a really bad upbringing, and like Lola isn't always necessarily as nice to people as she thinks she is, and stuff like that. Even though like they're generic good people, so to speak, but like they're not the people that they necessarily think they are, and she's always trying to like work off of that. And she always like held like these masks on like these sticks above her face, like doing voices whenever she was pretending to be the other character, and I thought that was fantastic. Yeah,
they did a lot of good work with her, and I really enjoyed her as a character.
mm-hmm.
And I love that progression, seeing her go from like, oh man, like you're so expertly annoying,
Yeah,
and I hate the fact that you're really trying to drive a wedge between these two, to, oh man, like,
yeah, for me,
you did the best thing you could have done right in front of your boss, and your boss is just like, yeah, you're disposable.
Yeah,
like nobody cares.
Some parallels to life there, I suppose.
I mean, yeah, like it
yeah,
was just super real.
Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing about I found with what you mentioned with she's trying to drive a wedge between the two, and the in my perspective, I started to realize like how kind of much they were such friends of circumstance basically, and they go
Yeah.
over that in the game, and it's sort of true, and a lot of people have some friends that are just friends of circumstance and stuff like that, and it was kind of
Yeah.
relatable in just a sense, like, huh, and just kind of made me think for a little bit, and it's just like, because something that we haven't gone over, Lola wants to move over to the West Coast. They're from America, and she wants to move over to the
Yeah.
West Coast. And like Milo doesn't really want her to leave because of like the situation setup that they have. And they're not really dating, but they're just really really great friends.
Yeah.
And there's some sort of tension in between them that's not doesn't really like go over it that much. Just not beyond like platonic friends, basically.
Actually, you know what? Honestly, not to like totally cut you off,
Hmm.
but that is one really cool thing.
Yeah.
Is that it's a game with like a male and female lead
Hmm.
that are just friends.
Yeah.
Like there is no like romantic subtext.
Yeah, you can tell that there's like a little bit of like previous subtext where like some people question like aren't you like having sex and stuff like that or
Yeah.
dating or whatever, like you're always together, and then they're like no, we're just really great friends, and like that's a thing that like
It is a
isn't
thing.
really portrayed in video games, and it
And
was kind of cool
no,
that it was.
it is so downplayed in video games.
Mhm.
To the point where like you got something like The Witcher where every female character you meet, they all
Yeah, or
love
insert
Geralt.
BioWare game here.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
yeah.
Like
Which is fun in its own respect, and
absolutely. But
it,
this was just nice to see a friendship.
yeah, and I think it was interesting because it makes the characters a little bit more relatable, which
It
is really
does.
cool. But to finish my one thought,
Yeah, sorry.
they're basically splitting apart, and Wormhorn is kind of working on that constantly throughout the
Yeah.
game, and I started to think just like, okay, well, like maybe they should work on that, and they do end up working on that if you get the success ending where you go back to Earth.
Mhm.
And it's like they're constantly like they have completely different opinions on it because Lola wants to see life and Milo just wants to continue with life, and
Yeah.
it's like you have friends like that where that's a very real thing to happen, especially they're just graduated from college, and that's what happens in that time of your life where like you do see and you don't see a lot of people who you used to converse with a lot. But yeah, is there anything else that you want to go over with the game yet?
Well, I mean, we kind of alluded to it just now, so
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think we should maybe get into
The endings.
the endings
All right.
because we
Yeah. We actually got different endings, which is really cool. Actually, you beat it. I beat it this afternoon.
yeah.
And
I messaged JC last night, and I'm like, dude, I lost. So you get the other one, so we can each talk about the different.
yeah.
Which was a total cop out because I tried.
Hmm.
So we've talked about this a little bit. There are drinking games.
Yeah.
There's beer pong.
Yep.
Which I found kind of fun.
Hmm. It
You
was
have
alright.
you have a little bit of a line, and you're trying to figure out where to throw the little. I think it was an egg of some sort.
Yeah, mushed up piece of paper or an egg or something. I don't really know.
Yeah, they do at one point tell you what it is. It's
Mhm.
some kind of egg, but you're throwing this, and then when you get it in theirs, they drink.
Yeah.
And when
This beer pong.
that's standard beer pong. But I like that the cup appears in your hand, and you actually like have
Yeah.
to drink it before you can keep going.
Yeah.
And the other was stacking shot glasses.
Mhm.
So you take the shot and then like
Yeah, it moves
Drop.
it back and forth, and you got to click the X button at the right point so it stacks and it doesn't fall off the stack. Your stack can't domino down, which is nice, but if it doesn't stack correctly on the top, then the new glass will fall over.
and you can actually like if you knock a glass too many times, it can shatter.
Oh, okay. I never
Because I had that happen to me a lot.
Oh, okay.
Because like I said, so the very final decision comes down to this like stacking.
Yeah, you gotta stack 5 high, whereas previously with Apollo, you only had to do 3. So
Yeah, and the first time I nailed it. Like I was just like bam, bam, bam,
I
done.
actually failed the mini games throughout it, and I found that weird because they give you the seal anyway because of what's going on with them setting up the intervention that we talked about. They're just like, I don't really care. Here's my seal. Whatever. We did the thing. You go do your thing. You're not gonna beat him anyway. Like,
See, I nailed all of the mini games. I nailed the beer pong the first time I had to play it. I nailed the stacking game. You didn't do the dancing.
No, I didn't.
Killed the dancing.
No, I felt that like I was trying to get them like to get the success like get out of hell ending anyway, and I thought going through that would help me perhaps dialogue wise, perhaps like if there was a way to bluff your way out, but I think you have to do the end game regardless. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So
But it like I'm sure it changed a little bit of the dialogue or it added to the dialogue anyway with that story anyway, so yeah.
So I tried so many times, and the great thing is you keep failing, and then you fail, and Lucifer's like, okay, I tell you what, gonna give you another shot.
Well, first they complain, and then they're like, "Oh, well, there's
Oh,
two
that's
of
right, 'cause
us.
there's two of
so
us. You didn't
you
beat
didn't
me."
give us each a chance." And then he's like, "Fine, I'll let you try again." And then if you keep on trying, then he's like, "Well, you can just reload the game anyway, so
He's
I
like,
may
"I'll
as well
just
just let you
save you
try
the time."
again." Yeah.
Save you the time. Don't have to reload the save. That was another thing. We didn't talk about it earlier, but they break the fourth wall a lot in this.
They do, and sometimes it's so subtle that you don't even notice it. It's like, wait, did he just say what I think he said?
Yeah.
Yeah, he totally did.
It was really good. So, anyways, I'm trying, and I keep failing,
Mm-hmm.
and it swapped the sides that the dialogue was on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna keep going, and I'm like mashing it at this point. So I'm like, I'm gonna get it, and I accidentally hit the. You know what? We're good. We lost.
Yeah.
You win, and I was really happy with my ending. I loved it. So we end up like it. They basically end up the same. I think there's a similar chunk of dialogue between the Monarchs and Lucifer, and then it cuts to this like 3 months later.
Yeah.
So it cuts to 3 months later, and they're in the sports bar in hell.
Yeah, the first bar that they were
Yeah,
at.
this which is great because they do make fun of it again, and like they're just like it's like they're settled.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're kind of happy to be there and whatever, and like
Yeah, they're in the routine.
yeah, like Lola's talking to a demon who she obviously knows, and then Milo comes in and is like, you still owe me money to the demon, and is like, I'm only kidding, no I'm not, you do owe me the money. But then like they sit down and have a drink together. Actually, one of the cool things about that is you have whatever one you're playing as, I can't remember, but they already have a drink.
Mm-hmm.
So Lola's there first, so she has a drink already, and Milo comes in and orders a drink, and is like, "Whoa, what are you having?" And he's like, and she's like, "Are we still doing that?" Because the entire way through, you're both together, so whenever you order a drink,
Yeah, you always
both get the
one.
same thing, and that I thought that was a really cute touch. To like, wait, we're still doing that? Like, I'm just gonna get my own thing now.
Right.
And then there's like this big surprise because Milo gets this like big promotion at his job, and everyone's like super pumped. And then like Sam comes in and it's just like, yeah, like there's I found another loophole, but we have to do it tonight. And I guess you guys can probably run this time and maybe jump. And I think you have to carry like a thermos or something. Do you guys want to do this? And Lola's just like, yeah, this place sucks. Like, and then like hard cut.
Yeah, and then the game's done.
And it was so much fun because they're just like, yeah, like we're settled and everyone's still having a good time. And, like hell is getting better because Lucifer
or more
has
tolerable at least.
Stopped drinking. And like they talk about his recovery, which is neat.
Yeah.
And everyone seems real happy, and then just that, like, yeah, this place is the worst. Like, get me out of here.
Yeah.
I thought it was a lot of fun. It was, I worked so hard to get the successful ending that I was kind of bummed when I ended up with that, but then like actually letting it run through, I'm like, yeah, this is what I wanted. This is the ending that I wanted.
Yeah.
You know, they were both real happy and like enjoying what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you had a much different experience.
Yeah, the endings are totally different. So in the successful ending, uh, you beat Satan, and then you go back to his place after you beat it, and then there's some dialogue between the demons, as Ian said. I think it's very similar. But what the difference is Satan actually yells out, and he goes, "You want to know what? I'm gonna do you a solid, and everybody on your team gets to go to heaven, but you have two demons on your team, so." The two
Yeah.
demons that you select get to go to heaven or
Or
go
Earth.
to Earth. And then he just like flat out passes out on his face, and then people are like, "Oh, what the hell?" And then yeah, you get the screen 3 months later, and you see a split screen of Lola on the West Coast, and then Milo in a magic shop. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. They actually like, they separated, but they're still in touch and stuff like that. That's really great. And then they're talking about like this TV show that Milo got Lola to watch and stuff like that. And she's like, I hate how you made me watch this, but it's like, can you believe how this happened? Like, oh my God.
It sounded like it was a reality show,
Yeah.
which is hilarious.
And they're talking, and so Milo's going to catch a plane to go visit finally, because they haven't seen each other in a while. And then you're only seeing the two of them, and then they mention the two demons. And I went through with Asmodeus, who's the party animal who like broke up with his wife, and he's actually like in the back room, and he opens up the door, and then is added to the conversation. And then Sam walks across because she was the other person in my party, and then she's like, "Oh, is that Milo? Like, tell him like this thing about the reality show. Like, I can't even believe that happened." It was pretty good, but the cool thing about the successful ending that they mention is, do you think we actually have a chance to make it to heaven now that we're back on Earth? And then Lola's like, I don't think that the higher ups think fondly of two people who brought two demons from hell to Earth, so we're going straight back to hell. And then it's
Yeah.
like, dun. And yeah, it was also a really great ending because like I love that twist on it because it's like, oh yeah, you're right. Like they
See,
probably wouldn't think too fondly of that.
I'm really curious. I am gonna go back and finish it again because
Mhm.
my drinking team was different,
Yeah,
which is neat. Like you're on your way when you're on your way to that final battle,
yeah, the final
the
battle.
final battle, you have a choice between like
The
a
every
lot of the different people
characters
that
you
you
meet,
interact
you
with.
cycle through them, and um, wanted Sam on my team, and then I was thinking because I really liked uh,
Al?
no Worm,
Oh, Wormhorn.
Wormhorn, and I kept on calling them Worm. That's why I can't remember the name. But I kept on having I was like, I'll put Wormhorn on my team. But then I was thinking about it, and I was like, but wait, I should put the party animal on my team because then it might actually help me win. And it did because he constantly won they help you with the beer pong game, and he got it in every single time, whereas Satan's lackeys were actually missing it every single time for me.
Yeah, except Satan. Satan was
Yeah,
just like
Satan was always
bam.
in, just
He
like
like
Al.
he held it like he was flicking it and would just
Yeah,
like boop and it would just go straight in.
yeah.
It was so frustrating. But I had Wormhorn with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be really curious to see my ending knowing that Wormhorn is coming to Earth.
Yeah, and it's your personal demon technically,
Yeah,
and it's a
it
partial demon that's only around for 24 hours.
and it's the personal demon of both of you
Mm-hmm.
and it actually makes a reference like earlier in the game that like you're like its parents.
Right.
And it was just it's like you're talking to it on its own
Yeah.
and it's like I'm not doing anything without my mom.
Yeah. But like ultimately that's the really cool thing about playing through this game cuz it does have some replayability, although it's probably going to be fairly samey, but there's different choices that you can make to do a certain mission versus a different one. Like you need a ticket to get into the mansion, to Satan's mansion to begin with,
Oh,
and
that's
you
right.
can
And
help out either a demon or a human who's doing something. And you can do either or, right? So the other time you play through it, then you could select a different path through that. And you can also do some things in different orders and stuff like that, which would likely change the dialogue around a little bit based off of our conversation of doing some things in a different order.
yeah.
And having your final team at the end and having different parties would hypothetically change things. Because, like, Sam wouldn't help you because she's like, one of the big things about it is Sam's actually one of the monarchs, and is kind of like a neutral one, but was sent to hell basically for not choosing a side.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, he's kind of my brother, so I'm just gonna sit this out. So literally, she didn't help with the
Yeah,
beer hall.
she was actually like a blank,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of sucks because every time she would get up to throw, she'd be like, "Nah, I'm good,"
Yeah.
and then like sit back down, and then they're like, "Okay, wham."
Yeah.
So
I think that's
it
why
was super
Satan's
frustrating.
lackeys didn't get anything in the beer pong things, because if you selected people who didn't actually
Oh, maybe.
did anything, then because I'm sure if you chose Apollyon, then she probably wouldn't do anything either because she wants him to stop drinking. So
Yeah, I didn't, and that's why I didn't take her, and I thought Al wouldn't participate either.
yeah, he had his lampshade on his head and
Yeah,
just
he wears a lampshade on his head. It's pretty fantastic.
yeah. But yeah, so that's our thoughts of the game and the endings that we got and what we liked and didn't like, and our sort of retrospective on the game as a whole. And overall, I guess, would you recommend the game, Ian?
You know what? I think if this is the kind of game that you're interested in, like if
Yeah.
you played Oxenfree and you liked it, if you played, like Life is Strange, or if you like I guess the like text-based adventures.
Well, that's going a little far back. That's
Not
like
okay, not
Zork.
text-based adventures, but like a graphical
A
text.
graphical adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you would enjoy this because it is very dialogue heavy.
Yeah.
You're not really interacting with
It's
a lot
very
of things.
character heavy too.
Yeah.
If you like well written characters, then I definitely would recommend both of this game's studios, Oxenfree and Afterparty.
I mean,
Definitely.
if like a shooter is kind of your bread and butter,
Mm-hmm.
maybe this isn't your thing.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't recommend this to somebody who doesn't like those style of games. But like if you played and enjoyed like the old like LucasArts games or something like that, there's no
Yeah.
puzzles in this game, but there is the dialogue and stuff like that, which is really
Exactly.
fun.
And I think there is a lot here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think my playthrough probably took around 6 hours, but
Did you get all the drinks?
I didn't drink all the drinks,
Right.
because I stuck with the specific ones that I liked.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Like dialogue
Because I was gonna
wise.
say that would add some playtime. Because
Yeah.
I didn't. I chose a couple of them, and anytime I ran out of a drink, I went back and got a different one. But yeah.
I did continually go back to get drinks,
Mm-hmm.
but always the ones that I liked. But no, I if this is the kind of game that you do enjoy,
Yeah.
absolutely, I would recommend it. If it's not, if this genre is new to you,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that this is
Yeah,
an ideal gateway.
I wouldn't start with this game if you haven't really dived into this style of game. Probably choose a different game, but unfortunately, but yeah, definitely overall, I think it was really good. I definitely would recommend it to fans of the style of game and fans of people who really like narrative and character driven style games. Definitely, I think you'll enjoy it, especially if you like, third wall breaking, awkward, slightly dark comical humor. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to trying to make versions of these drinks, because they were very fun.
Yeah.
I mean, dangerous. Never drink the actual ones,
Yeah.
but like everything about it was just enjoyable for me. I had a really good time playing through this. There was a few times where I think the pacing kind of slowed down a little bit because didn't have the urgency that Oxenfree did.
Yeah, Oxenfree was a little bit more engaging. I would agree. It had a little bit more urgency just because of I guess the way it was written, but which didn't really come across that much, I think, in this game. Even though you had the urgency of you only had that night to get this done.
Yeah.
But it's like,
It felt like the night was just going on forever. Like it was
mhm.
just like I have as much time as I want. This to me, um, like tempo wise, it kind of felt like the beginning of Life is Strange,
Okay.
which, as we've been over before, we have a whole episode on that. I played the first hour
Mhm.
and I put it down and I was like, well, okay, whatever,
Yeah.
because it didn't really grab me because there
Yeah.
was no like.
It's very similar where like the reward is worth it, but the pacing of it is a little bit slower for sure.
Yeah, well, I
Yeah.
mean, to me, when this caught its stride, like it hit me nice and early, and then I found it dipped a little bit, and then when it caught back up, I was like, okay, great, I'm right
Mhm.
back in. This is, we're moving forward. There isn't a lot of additional off the beaten path content.
No, it's very like other than some of the multipaths, it's very linear.
Yeah, it is very much like each of the
But this style of
sections.
game is generally like that, so
Yeah,
it's what you would expect. But yeah, overall, pretty good, and definitely looking forward to the company's next game, and see
absolutely.
what they do because it seems like they're doing like different style of game every time, and as great as it would be to like see a sequel or something like that, it's not always needed, and
No, I think the
it's
end, like
pretty
this is
good.
a pretty solid ending to the story.
Yeah.
Either of them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So if you have played the game and have some opinions on it, and let us know what you think of the game down below. And if you've made it this far, obviously you probably like what you saw. So if you could help us out by giving us a like, and if you haven't subscribed already, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification buttons, and see if YouTube will send them to you if you want. And yeah, we do episodes weekly, and we'll see you in the next episode.